Mr. Potocnik, you're saying that financial capital is overvalued, human capital is undervalued, and natural capital is not valued. Can you think of existing business models that at least balance this inequality?
Yeah, there are some models which are, of course, taking those things into account, but I'm talking about the overall economic system and approach which we are using. And if you would look to the consequences and to the reality of the life in which we are currently, for example, if you look it through the social distribution, if I remember well, 62 people are owing the same as half of the population, and 1% is richer than the rest of the world. So if we are half serious that we want to eradicate poverty, hunger and so on, which we have all committed in Sustainable Development Goals, then there is no other chance than to revalue some of the things, to change the production and consumption models in which we are living. And this goes to fundamentals of the economic story. And there are many questions which I think needs to be taken through this perspective. So if we are sending wrong price signals to the market, and market is a mechanism in which those decisions about the equilibrium are reached, and we know that equilibrium is reached in a way where the prices are crossing the quantities, then of course the quantities which we are consuming are the wrong ones. And this is leading us that many of the things which are in particular connected to undervalued nature or not valued nature are simply indebting our societies, or are pushing the costs which our societies have, not from those who are producing and using specific products to those who maybe get ill, who are part of the health system, or something which is even more common to the next generations. So while we have clear rules, for example in European Union, that we should not indebt when it comes to the budgetary questions, you know, the rule of 3% of GDP, which you can be yearly in a deficit when it comes to the budget. We have no clear rules when it comes to indebting in the environmental context. On the contrary, we are even stimulating that. If I can name you just one fact, I have read recently in the OECD Green Growth Indicators report, or Green Indicators report, I don't know exactly the name, it was written that OECD countries have from the year 2014, from the year 2000 till 2014, increased their fossil fuel subsidies more than it was their GDP growth. In the richest countries, in the time when all of them are speaking about fighting the climate change, are still increasing fossil fuel subsidies, not going in the opposite direction. So these are the signals which we should remove from the market, or something will go terribly wrong. And these are my points, that we have to put the things in a perspective, look at the broader picture, and do not just privatize the profits and socialize the costs, because this will not end up well.
Circular economy transit requires long-term investments and lower returns. With the current threat of urbanization and fear of it in many industries, and fear of upcoming job losses, do you think anyone would instruct their investment broker to lower profit returns and not go for maximum short-term profit?
The things which you said simply don't have any serious factual base, because why this would be only long-term? Already today many are getting a lot of relatively high returns from business models which are changing from producing the products to sharing the products, or changing the things in a way which are much more socially and environmentally acceptable, and still having relatively high profits. For example, Unilever has the whole philosophy how to change the approach of their business. So it's simply not truth. You need to go into details, but what I'm telling you, go on with that kind of thinking. When you will hit the wall, then of course we will have another financial crisis. then we will have the shortage of resources, then we will have the conflicts about the resources and wars, and then will anybody be happy? Me, certainly not. I just want to underline that the business model in which we are currently stuck, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable economically, it's not sustainable socially, and it's not sustainable environmentally. If this is not enough, I don't know which argument should I deliver to your investors.
Is there a country that has been able to achieve balance with its policies and governance?
No, I would not say that there is a country specifically, but certainly there are some countries which are understanding the situation better than the others. Some are pretty much, for example, already pushing for a circular economy strategic approach. Nordic countries in particular, you have Finland, you have Sweden, you have Netherlands, also Germany, by the way. Their economic success is pretty much based because they have understood that in Europe, in particular, we are pretty much vulnerable when it comes to resources. We inbuilt, if I remember well, from the 54 critical materials which we inbuilt in our high-tech products, this is the figure from European Commission, more than 90% it's imported. So volatility of prices of resources, the shortage of some of the critical material resources, all those things are extremely important. And also you live in Europe where we want to protect our social model. And this means that you don't have a lot of costs which you can address. If you look to the cost structure of any company, you will see that the major two costs are materials and labor. If we want to protect labor, and as I said at the beginning, I even believe that it's undervalued, then we should simply try to see how we can save the costs and in the resource area. And if we are saving the costs in the resource area, we are even simultaneously lowering the pressures on environment and on our health. And this makes sense. Why we would not go in that direction? So there are some European countries, also my country, Slovenia, it's currently very well going in the direction of introducing the circularity, which simply means that they have understood that the change of economic model as we see it and understand it today, it's simply unavoidable. And sooner you do it, better and higher can be the profits and returns from this transition, because the early movers always have the advantages. You should always remember, any transition, it's a major opportunity for people who are innovative, for people who dare and who look forward. And any transition is a problem for those who want to stay in the past and who don't see a perspective. And when we talk about growth and jobs, which one would you support?
So could you please tell me, with the society trying to balance the financial human nature inequality, do you think that financial industry has to implement change management measures? What measures do you think can come immediately, and what at the next stage?
I don't know financial industry. I'm not an expert in that. I can just say from what I'm seeing that the financial sector has to seriously rethink the way how they are functioning. Because I was 2 days ago on European Policy Center kind of gathering. It was the board gathering, and we discussed, and there was pretty much a common understanding that the next financial crisis is coming. Why? Do we simply accept that fact, or will we do something? I think that the financial sector simply has to take the responsibility and be part of the more balanced and forward sustainable world. And currently I think it's not contributing as it should. And how this would be done internally, with what measures, I frankly don't know, but I know that it should be done.
Very few investment companies would sacrifice alpha in investments or even small share of the profit to invest in circular economy technologies. What would be your arguments to convince to invest in circular economy?
I think I have told you enough arguments to invest in the circular economy. I think it's simply taking the longer-term view and the responsibility. And when you are talking about longer-term view, in the 21st century, we don't have a luxury not to think in system kind of way, and we don't have a luxury of not synchronizing our short-term measures and profits with the long-term perspective. We are, for the first time, we are a generation which is for the first time living in the socio-economic system of planetary scope, which means that economy is global, trade is global, transport is global, internet is global, climate change is global. Practically, whatever you touch today, you see that we are so interconnected, so interdependent like never. And that means that our responsibility, individual and collective, and also responsibility of the financial sector, has enormously increased. If we want to live in a world in which we will avoid conflicts and in which we will avoid problems, and in which we will tackle some of the things which we are today seeing that are dramatically influencing on our life already today. So some are saying that these are nice words about the future, but my message would be the future has already arrived, unfortunately. It is called the present.